Hey everyone, Mr. Cole back again. We're going to do some quick grammar review. Today we're just talking about the difference between phrases and clauses. So we're going to talk about the basic difference. We'll get into the types of phrases and clauses you'll need to know in the next video on sentence patterns. The basic idea for a phrase is a collection of words that may have nouns or verbals, but it does not. Okay? It does not have a subject performing a verb. Right? For example, leaving behind the dog. In this case, we have a verbal, right? We know that something is being left, but we don't know who's leaving behind the dog. In the second example, we have smashing into a fence. Again, the same idea. We know that someone or something is smashing into a fence, but we don't know who it is, so we're missing a subject. The third example, before the first test, right? In this case, we have a prepositional phrase in this case because, before the first test, we don't know what happened before the first test, and we don't know who did it. So in this case, we're missing both the subject and a verb. In our last example, because of her glittering smile. And in this case, we know that something happened because of her glittering smile, but we're not sure exactly what. So again, when we look at each one of these examples, there's something happening in them, but we don't have a subject who's actively performing them, and that makes them a phrase. Okay, our next area that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about clauses. So when we looked at the phrase, we were looking at a collection of words that does not have a subject actively performing a verb. And in this case, it's the same thing, except we do have a subject actively performing a verb. For example, in the clause, since she laughs at diffident men. In this case, we always ask, what's the verb? The verb is laughs. Right? We ask who laughs, it's she. So we have both a subject and a verb. The second example, I despise individuals of low character. In this case, if we ask, what the verb is, we come up with despise. We ask who despises? I do. So we have both, again, subject and verb. All right, it makes it a clause. When the saints go marching in, right, in this case, our verb is go, and we ask who goes? It's the saints. All right, so we have subject and verb. And our last example, I love grammar. And when we look at the verb, we have love, and when we ask who loves, it's I. Now, there are a lot of different types of clauses. If you go to our other video on types of clauses, I'll go into detail on the main clause versus subordinate, and the noun, adverbial, and adjective clauses. So you can see all of that on another film. But for this one, we're just talking about the basics of what is a phrase and what is a clause.